From the petrol engines, the most reliable are the older 1.4 liter and 1.6 liter naturally aspirated units. They are not very powerful and also not that economical as the newer engines, but they can easily withstand 300,000 kilometers or more with regular maintenance only. However, it's worth mentioning that after approximately 200,000 or 250,000 kilometers, you can experience bigger or smaller oil consumption. Plus, of course, let's not forget about the 2.5 liter 5-cylinder engine available in the US, which is also great, reliable, and a fairly simple unit, so all I can say is buy it if you can. But from now on, it's gonna be nothing but downhill on a highway to hell. Let's start with the 1.2 liter TSI. The biggest issue of this smallest engine can be with the timing chain mechanism, which is made from boiled potatoes basically. It's because in plenty of cases it was, and it can be worn even before 100,000 kilometers, and in fact, in the earlier cars made to 2011, it was numerous times replaced even at 30,000 or as early as 20,000 kilometers. The next problem of this tiny engine can be with the faulty turbo wastegate actuator. But in this case, the actuator arm can be only stuck, so before replacing the actuator itself, it's worth to first disassemble the actuator and try to free up the things. The last issue worth mentioning is that this engine is more prone to oil dilution with fuel. So if you will use this engine for very short distances only, then you can experience that the fuel will slowly get into the oil, which is not very good in the long term. The 1.4 liter TSI with 122 horsepower is on the other hand a much better engine, but even this unit can have issues with the prematurely worn timing chain. In this case you can expect this issue mostly between 100,000 and 150,000 kilometers. However, in some cases the chain mechanism can be worn even before 100,000 kilometers, but again mostly in the cars made to 2011. Next, there is the infamous 1.4 liter TSI with 160 horsepower, which is equipped with a turbocharger and also with a compressor to achieve the very good performance. But the various possible issues of this engine are not that good as the performance. And again, let's start with the damn timing chain, which as in the previous engine can be worn mostly between 100,000 kilometers and 150,000 kilometers, but there are also cases of worn chain mechanism even before 100,000 kilometers, mainly in cars made to 2011. The next issue of this engine is related to the compressor, specifically to the magnetic clutch of the compressor, which can fail even before 100,000 kilometers, causing weak engine performance since the compressor is not gonna be engaged. In this case you will have to replace this clutch, which is connected to the water pump. But let's move on to the most interesting issue this engine can have, which is related to the pistons. Specifically, the side of the pistons can crack and also break off basically, even before 100,000 kilometers. Replacing the pistons and all the other necessary stuff is obviously expensive. So I would not recommend choosing this engine if you don't have the extra money to fix this. Next, there is the GTI version equipped with a 2 liter TSI engine, which can have a couple of problems as well. In this case, again, the damn timing chain mechanism can be a bit problematic, specifically the very first weaker version of the timing chain tensioner can fail and damage your engine even before 100,000 kilometers. However, cars made from mid-2012 should have the updated version of the tensioner installed, which is much better and which can withstand a longer time. Definitely check visually the tensioner through an inspection hole on the side of the engine, since there is a noticeable difference between the old and the updated tensioner. The next problematic part of this engine is called the camshaft bridge, which can occasionally cause oil starvation in the cylinder head or other damage if this small screen falls out from it. The good thing is that only cars made to 2009 are more prone to this, since they have the earliest version of the camshaft bridge. But the bad thing is that the cam bridge was revised more than 3 times, so the screen can fall out on later cars as well. After this, there is the plastic variable intake manifold, which can be faulty. This is a complex plastic garbage with moving plastic flaps in it, which can wear out and fail and shit. Plus, it can also cause vacuum leaks, so be prepared to replace it with a newer, better and more sturdy updated manifold. Next, there is the PCV valve, which can be often faulty before 80,000 miles. It's good to replace it preventively, since it can blow the rear main seal, which starts to leak oil, and that's an expensive repair. Before I move on to the most powerful versions, I have to mention the infamous 1.8-liter TSI, which was interestingly also available in this Golf, even though it's not very common. This is the same engine which was available in the Audi A4 B8, and it also has the same common problems as the already mentioned 2-liter GTI engine. But except all these issues, it also has a very high chance of excessive oil consumption because of the undersized pistons, piston rings and oil scraper rings. Lastly, there is the Golf GTI Edition 35 and the Golf R, both equipped with an older generation 2-liter TSI engine. This unit has indeed an older construction, but it's also more reliable than the engine in the regular GTI. It's mainly because it has a timing belt instead of a timing chain, and it also has a slightly different, better intake manifold. From the weak points of this engine, the only thing worth mentioning is the high pressure fuel pump camshaft fallover, which you should check, eventually replace, since it can get worn and cause issues in the future. To end this, let's check out the common issues of all the TSI direct injection engines. Because of the direct injection, you have to be ready to deal with carbon buildup or faulty injectors. Every 100,000 kilometers, it's good to check the intake valves for carbon buildup, eventually clean them, and every 200,000 kilometers, it's good to check the injectors, have them tested, eventually replace them. Faulty ignition coils can occur too, but you can minimize this by replacing the spark plugs in time. Leaking water pumps can occur as well, so check the coolant level regularly. Oil leaks are inevitable, so check the top and bottom of the engines for oil leaks. For example, you can expect oil leaks from the timing chain covers, occasionally from the rear main seal, and sometimes also from the camshaft cradle. Most of these engines don't have a regular valve cover with a regular valve cover gasket. Instead, they only have a metallic camshaft cradle or cylinder head cover in other words, which holds in place the camshafts and which is sealed by a sealant and not by a regular gasket. As the sealant gets older, it starts to leak oil, and that's the whole story. Occasionally, turbocharger failures can occur in all these TSI engines, and all these engines, including the older units without direct injection, can have vacuum leaks. These vacuum leaks can be caused by cracked plastic or rubber vacuum hoses, or because of the faulty PCV. All the petrol engines are equipped with a timing chain except the older 1.4 liter and 1.6 liter naturally aspirated units and the older 2 liter TSI. These engines have a timing belt. In the 1.4 and 1.6 liter engines, you should replace it every 120,000 kilometers or 5 years. And in the 2 liter TSI, you should replace the belt between 150,000 and 190,000 kilometers or 5 years. As I already said, the chain mechanism in the 4-cylinder TSI engines can be worn anytime basically, so even before 100,000 kilometers. That's why the best is to either measure how much is it worn or to replace it preventively after buying, mainly in the early engines made to mid-2011. Because keep in mind that if the chain skips, then it can easily damage the engine pretty badly.
Not good.
For more information about this car, visit my website or check out the complete used car review video I did about it.